morning. This is Stan in Gainesville, Florida, and you are listening to Light Talk.
Hi, this is Steve in Dallas, Texas, and today we're going to talk about everything from footlights to big ol' Honkin Hazers for stadiums, all on Light Talk.
And this is David in the beautiful neighborhood of Belmont Shore in Long Beach, California. And if you don't know already, you are listening to Light Talk, and we are the Lumen Brothers. Yes, we are.
Oh, that's us.
That's us. Hey, welcome everyone to episode 76. And first, we want to thank our honorary Lumen sister, Ann McMills, for joining us last week on episode 75.
Go Ann, go
yeah,
Ann.
Ann was great, and I'm glad we had her point of view there. And also, if you like when Ann is on the show, and I know that we do, you will have another chance to see and hear her at our live show at LDI, where the Lumen Brothers and Sista will be recording at 4:30 p.m. on Saturday, October 20th. We will be taking questions from the audience, so if you want to stump the chumps, be there. The room
No more questions about gray light. I can't do that again.
But you remember the answer.
I
right?
do.
It's reflected light. Brilliant.
Reflected light.
And now that person who asked that question is one of Steve's students.
Oh, no.
Yes, that's right.
Oh, yes.
Yes, Philip. He asked,
Well, I think he
asked
needs
that
to
question.
make some gray light and show it to me.
Well, he will. But anyway,
Okay.
the room location is still to be announced. We may be on the casino floor for all we know, but we will announce it when we get it. So hey,
I think we'll be levitating
levitating.
in creative Nirvana.
Creative Nirvana. Wait a second. That should be our booth. We should create
Creative
Nirvana.
Well, David, let's get this straight. We've gone back and forth, but we're not having a booth.
Oh, we're not. Is that the official?
Yeah, yes, because they have to man it the whole time, and none of us want to sit put at a booth the whole time.
That's true. Can we get like some students to do it?
Stop.
Or we could hire some showgirls.
Yeah, that's it.
Okay, we'll have to put the Creative Nirvana on the back burner. But anyway, hey, for the people who listen to us regularly and listen,
There are people that listen to us?
Yes, there happen to be people who actually subscribe to this podcast, which is a good thing to do. But anyway, last week we were talking about my new Tesla, and we had this discussion about.
No, you were talking about.
No,
your new
we all
Tesla.
talked about it because it morphed off into this sort of discussion about interior lighting design or automobiles. And even you said Ford had better lighting than the Tesla.
I did. You're right. That's true.
And Ann had a Mini Cooper that she said had better lighting than the Tesla.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
So anyway, I want you guys to know that I actually sent a message to Elon Musk. And I thought that you may be interested in what I am offering this Tony Stark of the 21st century.
He probably wants to do a lava light because he's been smoking a lot lately.
You know, he's a crazy genius. So here's the letter. Dear Elon, first let me congratulate you on your great success with your Model 3 rollout. Producing over 4,000 cars a week is impressive, especially for a car that costs over $55,000. I am a recent buyer of one of your Model S sedans. I am very impressed with the car. It is beautiful, fast, and quiet. It also has great utilitarian use. My Labrador Retriever loves riding in the rear hatch area. I only have one complaint, and that has to do with the interior lighting. Being a professional lighting designer, I am very sensitive to how light affects atmospheres. I am very sad to see that you have spent very little effort on the interior lighting of this automobile. There is little to no edge lighting to highlight the futuristic contours of the car, and the LED spots to illuminate the seats and laps of the passengers is spotty, glaring, and features a warm color temperature. This is not very attractive in a car with black, gray, and silver trim. If designers did indeed light this interior, I suggest that they immediately be sacked.
Ouch.
In return, I, David Jacques, am here to offer my services to you to redesign the lighting for all your current models and design the lighting for any future model that may be in your imagination. In addition, I will be happy to throw in any lighting design services you may need for SpaceX. I do well in weightless environments. All I ask in return is one tweaked out Tesla Roadster. Black, please. Keep up the good work. Kiss, kiss, David. So anyway, I will report back to see if Elon actually responds to this.
Do you have the correct address?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I know.
Okay.
He's in Fremont, California.
That kind of stuff can work because I was interested in relighting the statue of King Kamehameha in Hawaii because it was so poorly lit when I was in grad
That's
school.
right. You mentioned this on an episode. It's fantastic.
Did I mention it on an
and
episode?
they
Yeah.
hired you.
I wrote, my teacher said, write to the governor. I wrote to the governor. The letter got translated. Next thing I knew, I got a phone call. So you never know.
I may end up in orbit.
Oh, that we would celebrate.
I would do a remote from orbit. Okay. So anyway, Stan, you have our first listener question.
All right. Looks like Vincente in Kansas City asks, what would you recommend as some very low profile footlights? Well, how low is low? So,
How low can you go?
What's that thing they
How
do?
low can you
how
go?
How low is it? So the coolest, cutest little thing that I've seen in a while that we were looking at for some small, low profile footlights that were not a strip light that would sort of take up a lot of space was the smaller version of the microcube, which is called the Pica Cube, which I believe that Roscoe markets, which is a really small little guy. And I think you can actually send the power and the data through one cable with the power supply. Yeah, and then I think if I needed to shape it, I think it's a pretty narrow beam natively. And then I think you can use Roscoe's OptiSculpt, or they have like a little electronic lens that lets you change the lensing from through control signal. So I think that's the one thing that pops into mind when I think about this question: the Pica Cube marketed by Roscoe and the OptiSculpt lens that they've got.
Well, what I'm experimenting with is LED tape. And I've been looking at stuff that's ranging from 1,000 to 3,000 lumens. So it's tape.
Yeah.
It's very small. So you can go in there and make yourself a little holder. I mean, I'm playing right now with some aluminum foil and a furring strip and putting 2 sets of LED tape on it. My problem, of course, is drop off as it moves upstage. But
right.
I think, if you're listening, China, make me a footlight that's 2 inches tall. But for me, a low profile, I'm more of a traditionalist. So I'm looking at the Philips SL bar, but I'm looking at the 500 series. They make 2 lights, a 600 series that's a double row LED, and they make a 500 series, which is a single row LED. So with the 500 series, you're standing about 4 inches tall total.
I like the footlight idea, and that works great. He's right about distance, I think. This little Pica Cube, I'm looking to see if I can see the beam angle on it.
Yeah, the 500 series has an 8-degree beam angle, so that's a little tight. And if you go with the 600 series, you can get that in a 60 or 30-degree beam angle. But there's also a couple very small, it's going backwards. There's a couple, the micro, or the mini, I think it's called, the mini MR16. It's very small, but you're going back into a tungsten light. Right. And if you do a double one, what I've done in the past with that is I've put a wide MR16 lamp in there for the near shot and a medium MR16 for the far shot. So I can get pretty far upstage with it.
Yeah.
Right. Another thing you could use, Steve mentioned tape. I used the ColorFlex system by City Theatrical last summer.
Oh, yeah. Uh-huh.
And the nice thing about that, and you could do this with other manufacturers as well, but you can actually isolate pixels. So you can only have certain sections of that tape lit. Steve is right. It does fall off, but any light's going to fall off with the distance. Also, I've used GLP atoms. And those are very small lights that you could place and use as footlights. Now, there are 2 types of footlights. One are like little spots that we used to use MR16s for. They were called birdies. And we still use them. And I think Steve just mentioned that. But there's also a strip light, a footlight, a very low profile strip light that you can use. And Steve mentioned one of those as well. I've used them by Elation. Elation has some models that work really well. And GLP as well. And those GLPs are very powerful. The GLP product is called the Impression X4.
I wanted to say something about the the Q color from City Theatrical and the LED tape that Steve's talking about, depending upon how it's arranged, the exciting part for me is to run a pixel map across them.
Right.
Right. And we're actually using our 640s and 660s on the show right now, and to get and we have a beautiful professionally printed sky drop with clouds, and we're running pixel map images across those because we took those strip lights and we put them in their most granular patch, so they eat like 55 channels per strip, but when we run the pixel map across it, it is totally cool.
A lot of people get very intimidated by pixel mapping.
Oh, it's so easy with the ETC. It's so easy.
It really is easy, but also, use the media server and and just throw some media in there. Throw an image, throw
that's what
a
we
movie.
did. The virtual media server. Yeah.
And use one of their stock ones. They have a bunch of stock ones that come.
Oh yeah,
that
tons.
you do have to load in separately, and give it a shot, because it may give you the effect you want. Maybe you'll have the movement you want, you slow it down, you can change the colors. It really is a very useful tool that ETC has.
Yep. One of my students is a master of that, and all he did is he worked with the designer, and they just got some images of a sky. And then when you put it in there, you can actually have it go from left to right, or diagonally across the image, or crop the image, or go from so you don't even need the video. You can just do the picture, and it runs across the picture in the way you determine it. It's really quite cool.
Yeah, and one thing we did last year is I had some GLP strip lights on the bottom of the cyc, and we actually tracked color across the cyc. The follow an actor's movement. You can have fun like that. You can really do stuff like this. That's really kind of cool. But yeah, experiment with it. Throw different images in there, because you'll be amazed, how you can subtly change the atmosphere just by color shifting.
And I will say that the control panel for the pixel map, the virtual media server, is almost as busy as the moving light interface. There's a lot of handles in there for it.
We should have asked Ann and Sarah about that. That's a very useful tool that they have in the EOS system. And thank God they did that. We really need to get them back on, because that interview was not long enough. I know they only gave us 45 minutes, but boy, we could talk for hours with them.
Well, that 45 minutes was based on Ann and Sarah running from one room where they were holding a seminar to their lunch break, and then they were running out of the room with us to another seminar that they were holding.
Amazing.
Yeah, they were crammed in there. It's true.
Yep.
Okay, we have a question from Kathy in the Netherlands. And she says, have you had the opportunity to work with a SeaChanger? And the short answer is yes. I have worked with the SeaChanger. They're incredible color-changing devices. SeaChangers come in a variety of flavors. And the one I'll focus on is their tungsten unit. So what you have is an assembly that has CYM mixing, and it also can have a green color wheel in it too. You take a source 4 and you insert it between the gate and the lens assembly. So you make your whole source 4 another 8 or 9 inches long. The advantage of that is you have the source 4 optics, and it doesn't interfere, the scene changer, doesn't interfere with your use of patterns or irises or gobo changers, all the kind of standard accessories that a source 4 will take. It will still accept it with the SeaChanger in place. So a SeaChanger comes with 2 variations of color wheels on board. There is the standard CYM wheels, and those wheels are tiger striped. So when you look at the wheel, 5% of white light gets through the wheel. So what you have in that device is color that is leaning more toward the pastel theatrical range. Then they have what's known as the Studio Dichroic, and that again is a CYM wheel, but it has 100% saturation. And so that gives you really vibrant red, blues, greens, and it has the extreme green wheel in it. Both of these units, if you wanted to, for some reason you could pull the green wheel out and you could put something else in its place. That's more important when you look at the LED line they make or the HMI line. So a pretty great light. It's beautiful, makes great colors. It's dead silent. It's produced by a company called Ocean Optics. They're down in Florida. I'm not sure if Ocean Optics still owns the company, but that is the tungsten unit. They also make a wash unit that has the same idea, and you can put these in any fixed focal length ETC line that you want to. And I'm sure people make adapters, so you could put them in other people's ellipsoidals also. The other thing they make an HMI unit now, and they also make a LED unit. So this is a great thing. You know, the kind of bullet points on this is it's a really high efficient diachroic, so you get great color with minimum loss of light. There's no interference between the unit and the source 4 optics. Really great color mixing, including pastels and saturated colors. It installs really quickly. It's once you pull it apart, it's just a bayonet mounting system that goes in there. Silent operation, and fast color changing with no intermediate colors on board. So yes, SeaChangers, if you can get your hands on them, I absolutely would use them. And I think they're probably struggling a little bit these days because people are making LEDs, and there's a pushback. So I think that was one of the reasons they developed the HMI unit. The HMI unit in rock and roll is fantastic because it'll cut through a par can, it'll cut through the movers. That light cuts through everything.
24,000 lumens, I see.
Yep.
So Tim in Chicago says, I want to attend grad school. What questions should I ask you? And I love
who, me? Who?
You, Stan.
Me?
What?
I have a quick answer, but go ahead.
I have
David.
a long answer.
Okay, I'll do the quick one
Do the
first.
quick one.
Okay, I think you should just ask if you're talking about me or my school. But either way, I think you should ask what makes us or me distinctive. What makes me different?
I think we all know the answer to that.
Well, I'm not talking about my height now, okay? Now, be nice.
No, I think the way you've turned your life around after prison.
That's
it's
true.
Amazing.
It is amazing because those embezzlement charges were just very tough. So good for you, Stan.
I got something coming up on the 28th, but I can't talk about it.
There you go. Hey, okay, this is a great question. I love this question. So here's my answer. And there are several.
It's going to be long.
No, it's
not
going to be that long. It's just, I'm sure this is going to a discussion because the three of us will see if we see eye to eye. And it all depends on the teacher and all that. So anyway, first thing you should ask, are you actively working in the profession? So this is controversial because I believe that a good graduate program and a good graduate teacher, one of their most important jobs is to help you transition into the profession and to stay active. And I think that you can't do that if you're retired. If you're not working in the profession anymore, yes, you still have a lot to offer. Don't get me wrong. You have a lot of knowledge and experience. But teachers who are working in the profession offer current knowledge, and it has a lot to do with technology, but also about the zeitgeist, what's going on, the styles, all that. What's happening? It's all changing. It's all flowing. And also will give you an opportunity, hopefully, to get into the profession. My next question is, do you take students with you? We talked about this a couple of episodes ago, that it's becoming more and more difficult to do that, but that is how you learn how to be a professional. You learn how to be a professional in the profession. You do not learn it in the classroom. You can learn techniques, you can learn philosophies in the classroom, but until you're out there working in the profession, you really don't know because you're not experiencing it firsthand. And that leads into what professional internships do you offer? I know Stan has a great internship at the Oslo. That's a wonderful opportunity to work with a professional regional theater company. I have some internships at different companies. One main one is at Central City. I know Steve has a lot of opportunities for you to go out into the profession. And good schools do this because internships are very, very important for the same reason as I said before. Another good question is, how many shows will I design while at school? because you learn design by designing, and you should go to a school that will offer you as many opportunities as possible. Now, you do not want to go to a school where you're the only lighting designer there, and you're designing 17 shows. That's not going to help you if you're the only lighting designer there. A, you're not going to have the time, and you're going to be exhausted, and B, you're not going to learn anything from your colleagues. So it's really important that there's a balance. I believe if you're going to school for 3 years, you should get at least 5 design opportunities. That's a little less than 1 a semester, sometimes 6, sometimes 7, depends on school, depends on the timing. But there should not be less than 4 to 5, really 5 for your 3 years. Can I take other classes? Again, not everyone just wants to be a lighting designer or locked into one area. There are a lot of people who want to be lighting designers and set designers, like me. And I was very fortunate. I went to a school that had more of a scenography type of program. I know Steve's school does that as well. I know Stan's school is flexible, and my school is flexible. There are schools out there, but there are also other schools that will ask you at IRTA, oh, you do lighting and you do sets? Which one do you really want to do? Because you're going to have to make a decision. If you want to have a broader means of expression, then go to a school that's going to allow you and actually encourage you to do it. What is the school's aesthetic? If you're interested in doing a lot of devised pieces that are sort of cutting edge and the style is like more expressionistic maybe, you don't want to go to a school that's just doing musicals that are realistic. You got to find what aesthetic turns you on, and find a school where they're programming the type of plays and musicals that will fit your own personal aesthetic and what you want to say as a theater artist. Another really important one, will I be working with professional directors? Who's directing the shows there? Okay, here it comes. I don't think acting teachers make good directors. And a lot of these schools have acting teachers directing the shows.
Most of them, I would say.
Yes. And so, every school's different. You go to a school and you have graduate directing students directing the show. That's wonderful because you make connections with, your future collaborators. These are going to be people who are going to be hiring you. I think that's really great. We have professional directors come in from LA and some faculty directors as well, and sometimes student directors. So it's a little balance there that we have. That's a question that's very, very important. I don't see really the benefit to a stage design student of having to work with faculty, acting teachers, directing the shows. And finally, I'm just going to say now, here's a question that you should not ask.
How much money do you give?
Exactly. God, Stan, you're brilliant. How much money will you give me? Okay? Because if I've had students ask us, well, I'm sure we've all had students ask us all this question. How much money will you give me to go to your school? Well, that is an instant turnoff. Because to me, if that's what you're concerned about primarily, then I'm not going to waste my time with you. I'm just not. Now, yes, it's true we don't offer a lot of money, but I think that even people who offer a lot of money, if they hear that coming out of your mouth, especially early in the interview, then it's a problem. It really is. They're thinking about, well, I'm going to go to the highest bidder. Not saying that you would, but that's the impression it leaves.
I want to just be a little bit, just play the contrarian a little bit on that question, because I know I anticipated your question. I'm just thinking back to my own life. So I would agree with you, David, that if that's the first thing you're asking, that's a problem, because then your priorities are in the wrong place. But at the same time, if you're coming from I came from a pretty humble background, and for me to follow my dreams, I needed a little help, because I couldn't get anywhere else. So in order for me to make it happen, if I had X number, and I saved really well, I'm a good saver. I had money in the bank to get to grad school to live off of. But the fact that my basic needs were going to be covered, like my health care in that particular case, enough for food, enough to pay the rent, made it feasible for me. So I think for some people that may be in the equation, but I would agree with David, it shouldn't be the tail that wags the dog.
Well, here's the deal. You're going to find out sooner or later. And why even ask the question? You're going to find out by reading the literature and through a follow-up. Right. Why take the chance of leaving a really bad impression? So that's information you will learn. I would just leave that because, again, looking back at all the interviews that the three of us have had at URTA, some people actually ask that question, but a lot of people don't. And
rarely. It's been rare for me with that question.
Yeah. And it's like, I'd rather not. Steve, what do you think?
Well, if anyone believes David knows what he's talking about,
that's true.
I would suggest to you on the money issue. So if David lays out 15 really good reasons to come to California, and the turnoff is that his money is 25% less than another school, but the other school isn't offering anywhere near what he's offering, then why are you in graduate school? I understand that money is important. Believe me, I understand that. But this is 3 short years, and you are trying to put a career together. And if you decide that $12,000 assistantship is better than a $10,000 assistantship, but with the $12,000, you're not traveling anywhere, you're not working with professional designers or directors, you don't have the kind of vibe of California, then that $2,000 isn't worth it. I mean, I interviewed a young man who saw me some years later, and he said, "I bet you don't know who I am." And I said, "I know exactly who you are. You're the kid who blew me off and went to another school." And he said, and it was the biggest mistake of my life. I've designed 3 shows. So we get back to David's statement. Are you doing 4, 5, or 6 shows while you're there? So, yeah, I mean, he was off on the right foot, but he was having to do a lot of it by himself. So, it's not a job. Going to college is not your job. And that money thing is pretty tight.
It's true. It's the place where you go to grow, not where you go to work.
The other thing I would say that I would add to what David had to say is you should ask me about my alumni.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Absolutely.
Here's the deal. Every school in the country has one superstar. But if you find a school that has 5 or 6 or 10 solidly working designers out of the last 3 or 4 classes, maybe that weighs, impacts your decision. So you have to look at the success of the school in placing their students into the industry, and then the success that those students have had. And clearly those schools are offering something in the way of opportunity and training that some other school may not be able to offer. And there's no villains here. There really isn't. It's about who's on the faculty, who are the students you are studying with, are you in the room with people who are equal to or better than you for the first time in your life, and what journey are you on?
At universities, often we get these student evaluations, and the students evaluate you like a week after the course has ended. They might have been really pissed off at you because you were really pushing them, or it was a hard course, or this or that. I have found that when we ask students to evaluate our program, when they've been out of the program for 2, 3, 4 years, and they reflect back on it, they have a clearer view of what the value was of our program. So oftentimes I will say to potential grads like Tim in Chicago, okay, I can tell you all day long about what we do and who I am and blah, blah, blah. But really, how about if I put you in touch with some students who have been out of the program for 3 or 4 years and ask them what they think about it when they look back at it? You are listening to Light Talk with the 3 Lumen Brothers. And this week, Light Talk is sponsored by
Do-It-Yourself Industries. Designing lighting can be very tough on your eyes. Having to repeatedly look up and down from the production table puts enormous strain on your baby blues. That's why most lighting designers suffer from optical degradation and need corrective lenses after only a few years in the business. But eyeglasses and contact lenses can also be a real hassle. What is Mr. Magoo going to do? Do-It-Yourself Industries has the answer for you. The USB-powered Do-It-Yourself LASIK kit. Manufactured in the great country of China, where for pennies you can buy laser pens that are bright enough to ignite an actor, the USB-powered Do-It-Yourself LASIK kit will permanently end your need for corrective lenses. By following the simple instructions translated from Mandarin to French to Farsi to German to Hebrew and finally to English, the USB-powered Do-It-Yourself LASIK kit will burn away your corneas to almost near-perfect 20/15 sight, give or take a few hundred points. Just have your assistant point the laser into your eyeballs for a few seconds. The scent of burnt eggs will tell you that the corrective process is complete. After a few minutes of recovery, give or take a few months, you will be able to throw those useless spectacles away. The USB-powered Do-It-Yourself LASIK kit. Who needs a doctor when you can do it yourself?
And now, back to Light Talk.
So Jay in Nebraska writes, can you suggest a hazer big enough to fill up a stadium?
That's a big hazer.
That's a
huge stadium and a big hazer.
How about multiple hazers, like an army of hazers?
Hang in there, Jay. I'm coming back. Okay, so yes, you could have an army of hazers, but why would you want that? Get yourself one big old honkin' hazer. And the hazer that I use...
The tank of hazers.
The hazer that I turn to...
The neutron bond.
Is...
what do you use, Steve?
It could be. I go with Look Solutions. I've been using Look Solutions for 20 years. I've got an army of those at SMU, but the stadium hazer that they make is called the Okra, and that is just a monster. It's a 9,000 watt output hazer. It has 3 different types of fluid you can use in it. Has 2 tanks on it. It's almost an instantaneous heat up, and it puts out more smoke than you can imagine. In fact, it puts out so much smoke that it's actually found its way into emergency training facilities and fire stations where they have to fill up a tower with smoke in a few minutes to conduct an experiment. But that thing is it's incredible, the output on it. And of course, you can plug it into your console. So the Okra by Look Solutions.
I have to say something. This is so serendipitous because I did not know much about Look Solutions literally till 48 hours ago. So, and this is the opposite to Jay's question because I'll twist his question.
What is the worst taser you can buy?
What's the tiniest taser?
No. Now, what is the tiniest taser you can get?
A match. You match.
No. Listen to this.
Look Solutions.
Yes. So it's called the Tiny Fogger. It's a little thing about the size of 2 35-millimeter film canisters. And I've been looking for something for our teeny tiny light lab so we can do haze. And because we now follow the Actors' Equity regulations, it has to be on the list of approved hazers or foggers. And guess what? The Tiny Fogger from Look Solutions is on the approved list. So I've been on the phone with Look Solutions this week, and we just sent it to them, and they're going to completely refurbish it and make it work like new. And if they can't, they have the perfect small hazer for my tiny light lab. So that's 2 rah-rahs for Look Solution in one question.
I don't know what to say, except that 12 years ago, I was doing this giant show at La Scala. And the stage at La Scala is just huge. I can't even tell you how big it is. So I was doing this show where I needed a lot of haze. And of course, it was an opera, so you have to be really careful with the haze you choose. And not only for health effects, but psychological effects too. Because, opera singers, you see haze and they completely freak out. So I knew a lot of these singers, and I assured them that I was going to use the right haze that was approved. And originally, I was really into Maitre Systems work because they used to make this tiny little hazer with this great haze juice. I would have needed about 50 of these to fill up the stage. So I called Maitre, and they said, we just developed this brand new hazer, and it's called our Stadium Hazer. And we could send you 4 of these, and we guarantee it's going to be enough haze for you. And so, okay, so they sent it to us. They were giant. They're in these big crates and all that. And we set like 2 downstage, 2 upstage. And we turned them on. And in a matter of about 20 seconds, that entire space was like soup. So we decided to turn them down to like 3%. And they worked beautifully. It really did. It worked amazingly. Got the beautiful, hanging haze. You couldn't even smell it. The opera singers loved it. And Maitre came back and they said, "Hey, would you mind being in one of our advertisements?" So cool. I said, sure. And I did. And I didn't get paid for it or anything like that. But I was just so happy that I had found a product that was, that the opera singers loved. And it was great. Now, since then, that was 12 years ago, I've used MDG hazers.
MDGs are good.
They have a ME series, an ME series that works great for very large spaces. There's a model called The One that also I've used on operas, and that works great. I love MDG and Maitre. Those are the 2 that I usually use. But I'm going to check into the look. This sounds very interesting.
Yeah, and you know what I was going to say, Steve didn't mention, but they are actually made in Germany. And what the guy told me on the phone this week, so ironic, was that the fluids are approved by, I think he said, the German Hygiene Medical Association or something. So there's something really good about them. So I didn't know about them until this week. And the Tiny is the cutest little thing you ever saw.
Well, yeah.
I hope he said, you know what? We can probably fix that for under $500 unless it's the pump. If the pump is gone, can't get the pump anymore. But if the pump is good, the heat exchanger and the other stuff, we'll clean it up. It'll work like new. What a great guy I talked to up there. So I'm also doing a rah-rah for these guys, and I'm looking forward to getting our tiny hazer back.
Well, we're all looking forward to this, Stan, because I'm going to buy one for my office. Because I need a hazer in my office.
Well, the tiny is not a hazer; it's a fogger. But he said that if to get some atmosphere in my light lab, it'll be fine. But I said if they can't fix it, he recommended, I think it was the Unique 2.1, which was listing. It wasn't terribly expensive, so they were really helpful in terms of if we can't fix it, here's what we recommend. So. And I've been struggling with this way to get haze in my light lab for about a year because we've adopted these actors' equity guidelines. So we're excited for that.
I think they developed that for Beauty and the Beast. I think they needed a little small hazer that they could embed into a serving tray that had a dome over it. So when they pulled the dome off, the steam was coming up off the meal. I
think you might be right.
Very short burst time. I mean, it does a very specific thing.
And you're right. And in fact, in the box, this was still in the original box. It ran on those old. Remember the old Panasonic video cameras that had these big, long, rectangular batteries? Yeah. This one ran on batteries. And so he said, but when we refurbish it for you, we'll just set it up to run on a power supply. And I said, fantastic. So what a good company in terms of really responding. So that says a lot about them.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to checking this one out. But the eternal question is, who makes a hazer that does not activate a smoke alarm?
Well, I know in our building we have optical sensors, and so we have to have we deactivate them once we're going into a haze show.
You deactivate. They don't
but we deactivate. We can access each sensor independently, so we know which ones are in proximity, and those are the ones we deactivate. And we have to call 24 hours in advance, and it's a whole process. And
Well, the funny thing is, we have one in backstage, and of course, we can't isolate it, so we just hang a big blanket over it. So
Oh boy, that could get you some jail time.
No,
buddy.
we don't. We don't do that. Except for that giant traveler that sits in front of it. But, other than that, it works really well. So, hey guys, that Hammond organ solo in the background tells us that once again, you've spent another morning listening to Light Talk. Don't forget to visit our website at lighttalk.org. There you will find a complete schedule of interviews along with other upcoming lighting events. And be sure to follow us on Facebook on our ever-growing Light Talk Facebook group page. And be sure to subscribe to our podcast. That way you will not miss a second of Lumen Insanity.
No guarantee is offered regarding the accuracy of any of the statements or opinions made on this podcast.
In other words, get thee some insurance.
Light Talk is written and produced by the Lumen Brothers, coming to you from Long Beach, Gainesville, and the Lone Star State.
And be sure to tune in next week when we discuss what to do after you receive the set design, tips for touring, what should a lighting designer avoid, and what are your favorite theatrical spaces to design in.
All of that and a new sponsor, Light Talk, broadcasting this questionable Lumen knowledge and humor around the world.
So we'll see you all next Saturday morning. Bye-bye from Light Talk.
Bye-bye, everybody. Have a good one. Light Talk.